What if I told you there's a liquid sitting in most people's kitchens right now that can wipe out weeds in a matter of hours, and the whole batch costs less than $2? No herbicides, no glyphosate, no trips to the garden center. Just a simple mix that, when you see what it does to a weed in direct sunlight, you are genuinely going to have a hard time believing it. I've been gardening for years, and I'll be honest with you, I was skeptical the first time someone told me about this. I figured it was one of those internet tricks that looks great in a short video but does absolutely nothing in real life. So I tested it myself, multiple times, on different weeds in different conditions in my own garden beds and along my pathways. And what I found? Well, it's complicated, because the results are both more impressive and more nuanced than most people online will admit. By the end of this video, I'm going to show you exactly what this mix does, where it absolutely delivers, and this is the part most videos skip, where it completely fails. Because knowing both sides is what will actually save your garden. Before we get into it, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. It genuinely helps more gardeners find this kind of practical, no-nonsense content. And drop a comment below telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love seeing how many different climates and garden types are represented in this community. Alright, let's get into it. So let's talk about the actual recipe, because this is where everything starts. The base mix is as simple as it gets. You need 1 gallon of water, 1 cup of plain table salt, and 1 tablespoon of liquid dish soap. That's it, 3 ingredients. And if you want to kick the effectiveness up a level, which I'll explain the science behind in just a moment, you can add 1 cup of standard white vinegar, the regular 5% acidity stuff you find at any grocery store. Now let's talk costs, because this is genuinely remarkable. A store-brand gallon of white vinegar runs about $2 to $3 and will make multiple batches. A pound of table salt is around 50 cents. A small bottle of dish soap is roughly $2 and lasts practically forever when you're only using a tablespoon at a time. When you break it all down, each batch of this mix costs well under $2. We're talking about the price of a piece of gum to treat a significant patch of weeds. Compare that to commercial herbicides, and it's almost absurd. Here's how you put it together. If you're making a smaller batch for a spray bottle, just scale everything down proportionally. For a full gallon in a garden sprayer, which is what I prefer, start with your water, then measure out your cup of salt and pour it in. Give it a good stir or shake for about 30 seconds until the salt is fully dissolved. You don't want undissolved salt granules clogging your sprayer nozzle. Then add your tablespoon of dish soap. Go slowly with the soap because it can foam up if you shake it too aggressively at this stage. If you're making the stronger version, add your cup of white vinegar last, after the soap, and just gently swirl rather than shake. The vinegar adds acetic acid to the mix, which we'll talk about in the next section, and it noticeably increases how fast this solution breaks down leaf tissue. One thing I want to flag before you spray a single drop: wear gloves and eye protection. I know it sounds overly cautious for something this simple, but the salt and vinegar combination can irritate skin with prolonged contact, and if any of it splashes near your eyes, that's a bad day. It takes 10 seconds to put gloves on. Just do it. Now, application makes a huge difference with this mix. This is not a drench the whole bed situation. You want to be deliberate and targeted. Use a spray bottle for precise spot treatment, or if you have a larger area of isolated weeds, a pump garden sprayer works well with a pinpoint nozzle setting. The goal is to coat the leaves thoroughly. You want the liquid sitting on that foliage, not running straight off. That's actually the role the dish soap plays. It acts as a surfactant, reducing the surface tension of the water so the solution spreads across and actually sticks to the waxy coating on weed leaves rather than beading up and rolling off. It's a small addition that makes a measurable difference in contact coverage. Timing is everything with this. The absolute best conditions are a hot, sunny, dry day, ideally with no rain forecast for at least 24 to 48 hours. Heat and direct sun dramatically speed up how quickly the solution desiccates and burns the leaf tissue. I've applied this on overcast days and seen very underwhelming results. Apply it on a 90-degree afternoon with full sun, and you can literally watch the leaves start to curl and yellow within a couple of hours. That's not an exaggeration, and please protect your desirable plants. Shield nearby flowers, vegetables, or ground cover with cardboard or plastic sheeting if they're close to the weeds you're targeting. This solution does not know the difference between a weed and your prized tomato. Spray only what you want gone, because anything it touches is fair game. Now here's the moment I promised you. Within hours of application on a hot day, you're going to see results that look almost too good to be true. Yellowing leaves, wilting stems, that crispy brown look that says the plant is done. It's genuinely satisfying in a way that's hard to describe until you've seen it yourself. The weeds look absolutely finished, gone, defeated. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is the part that separates a gardener who uses this once with great excitement from one who actually understands what's happening beneath the surface. Because what you're seeing on the leaves isn't always the whole story. The question of whether this mix actually kills weeds for good, whether you'll ever see that weed again, that comes down to something this mix does really well and something it fundamentally cannot do without help. And that's exactly what we're going to break down right now. So let's get into the actual science, because once you understand what's happening at a cellular level, everything about this mix, both its power and its limits, starts to make complete sense. Let's start with vinegar. White vinegar is essentially diluted acetic acid, and when acetic acid contacts a plant's leaf tissue, it disrupts the cell membranes. It literally punches holes in those membranes, causing the cells to leak their internal fluid and collapse. At the same time, the acid draws moisture out of the tissue, a process called desiccation, which is why you see that rapid browning and wilting within hours of a sunny day application. The plant is essentially being dehydrated and broken down at the cellular level simultaneously. Now, here's something important that most videos glossed right past when I was first researching this, and it took me a while to dig into the actual data. The effectiveness of vinegar as an herbicide is heavily dependent on concentration. Standard grocery store white vinegar sits at 5% acetic acid. Research from the USDA's Agricultural Research Service found that 5 to 10% concentrations work reasonably well on young seedlings. But when you're dealing with more mature weeds, you start needing 15 to 20% acetic acid concentrations to hit that 95 to 100% foliage kill rate. That stronger stuff, sometimes called horticultural vinegar, is a very different product from what's sitting in your kitchen cabinet. It's also significantly more caustic and genuinely needs careful handling. The 5% you're mixing at home will work, especially on young weeds and thin leaf species, but it may require multiple repeat applications on anything that's been growing for more than a few weeks. I've had to go back and hit certain weeds 2 or even 3 times before they stopped coming back. That's not a failure of the method, it's just a reality worth knowing up front. Now let's talk about salt. This is the ingredient I want you to pay the most attention to because it's both the most powerful component in this mix and the most dangerous one if used carelessly. When salt dissolves in water and contacts plant tissue, it creates what's called an osmotic imbalance. Basically, water moves from areas of lower salt concentration to areas of higher concentration. That's osmosis. So when the saline solution sits on or soaks into plant tissue, it draws water out of the plant cells. The leaves wilt rapidly. You'll see it happening within hours in warm conditions. On top of that, the sodium and chloride ions that make up table salt are directly toxic to plant cells in high concentrations, interfering with nutrient uptake and essentially poisoning the plant's internal processes. That 1 cup of salt per gallon you're mixing is creating roughly twice the salinity of seawater. It's genuinely lethal to most plant tissue it contacts. Fast acting? Absolutely. But here's the part I really need you to hear, especially if you're using this anywhere near an actual garden bed. Salt does not stay on the surface, it moves. Rain moves it, watering moves it, natural soil drainage moves it, and once sodium chloride accumulates in your soil, it raises salinity to levels that harm the beneficial microorganisms that make healthy soil function. Earthworms leaf or die. Mycorrhizal fungi are disrupted. And over time, repeated salt applications can literally sterilize your soil, making it hostile to plant growth for seasons, possibly years. I've seen raised beds that were treated heavily with salt-based solutions struggle to grow anything productive for the following 2 growing seasons. That's a real cost that no $2 price tag accounts for. So if you're treating weeds in a pathway, on a patio, between pavers, salt away. But in or directly adjacent to a garden bed where you want to grow things, use the salt component with real restraint, or skip it entirely and rely more heavily on the vinegar concentration and surfactant. Which brings us to the dish soap, the quiet workhorse of this whole mix. On its own, a small amount of dish soap isn't going to kill a weed. What it does is act as a surfactant, which means it reduces the surface tension of the water in your solution. Plant leaves, especially weeds like bindweed, chickweed, or any grass family species, are coated in a waxy cuticle that causes plain water to bead up and roll right off. The dish soap breaks that tension so your solution spreads out and stays in contact with the leaf surface instead of sliding off. That extended contact time is what allows the acetic acid and salt to actually penetrate and do their damage. 1 to 2 tablespoons per gallon is all you need. More than that, and you'll just get a lot of foam without any added benefit. Alright, now for the part that I think is the most valuable thing I can tell you in this entire video, the limitations. Because here's the hard truth. This mix is a contact herbicide. It kills what it touches. And what it touches is almost always just the above-ground parts of the plant, the leaves, the stems, the visible growth. The roots, the crown of the plant sitting just below the soil surface, those are often completely unaffected. For annual weeds, the ones that germinate from seed, grow, set seed, and die in a single season, this is often enough. Kill the foliage before it seeds and you prevented the next generation. But for perennial weeds, dandelions, bindweed, ground ivy, creeping thistle, Canada thistle, oxalis, these plants have root systems that can extend inches or even feet into the soil. You can burn the top off a dandelion with this mix and feel genuinely triumphant, and then 2 weeks later a fresh rosette of leaves emerges from that intact taproot like nothing happened. I've done this myself more times than I'd like to admit before I understood what was actually going on underground. Weather matters too. Apply this on a humid day, a cloudy day, or with rain coming in the next few hours, and you're going to be disappointed. The drying and desiccation process that makes this solution so effective depends on heat and sun. Moisture in the air or on the leaf surface dilutes the solution and slows contact. I now only apply this when I can guarantee at least 24 dry, sunny hours afterward. That's become a firm rule for me, and species matter. Some weeds are genuinely more susceptible than others. Thin-leafed annual grasses and young broadleaf seedlings tend to respond dramatically. Thick, waxy, or deeply established perennials are much more resistant and often require repeated treatment or a completely different approach. So what's the right way to use this? Here's how I've come to think about it after testing this across multiple seasons. Use this mix as a precision spot treatment tool, not a broadcast solution. Target individual weeds, coat the foliage thoroughly, do it on a hot sunny day, and be extremely deliberate about where you spray. In established garden beds, I'd recommend keeping salt use minimal or zero and instead leaning on the vinegar and soap version if you need to treat something close to your plants. And for long-term control, you need to pair this with other methods. Thick mulch, 3 to 4 inches, over your beds after treatment prevents new seeds from germinating. For deep-rooted perennials, hand-pulling after softening the soil with water is still your most reliable option. Boiling water poured directly onto root zones kills both foliage and shallow roots simultaneously without the soil damage risk of salt. For larger infested areas, solarization, covering the soil with clear plastic for 4 to 6 weeks in summer, can kill seeds, roots, and soil pathogens all at once. Here's the honest takeaway I want you to leave with. This $2 mix is real, it works, and it is genuinely useful. For young weeds, pathway weeds, and fast spot treatment when you catch something early, it absolutely delivers. But removes any weed forever is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that headline, and the science tells us the more accurate version is this. It kills top growth fast and effectively. It may need repeating for mature or perennial weeds, and the salt component demands careful, targeted use to avoid doing lasting damage to the soil you're trying to garden in. Think of it as one smart tool in a toolkit, not the only tool. Use it strategically alongside mulching, hand pulling, and proper soil care, and you'll get real, lasting results without paying the price in garden bed fertility down the road. If this breakdown was helpful, share it with a fellow gardener who's been burning through expensive herbicides, because this approach, done right, genuinely holds up. And if you tested this mix yourself, tell me in the comments what weeds you went after and what happened. I read every single one.